Welcome back to the main event right here at Franchise Sports Media. I am your host, Griff Kemp. Our boy Kalani couldn't be here today, but we're still going to hold the show down. We're still going to talk about the most important topics going in on the world of combat sports today. To start off, Bo Nickals. For all you casuals out there who haven't heard the name, don't really even know if that's a real name, it is. His name is Bo Nickals. He's a young up-and-comer. He just won the Dana White Contender Series after his third straight win in a row, making him a perfect 3-0 on his MMA record. There's a lot of interesting things about him. There's a lot of interesting things to look into Bo Nickals. One, he comes into the game with a lot of different skill sets. He's a tremendous wrestler, was a collegiate superstar in wrestling. He also shows a lot of technique when it comes to jiu-jitsu. He's on the ground and a little bit on the feet too. The man is just an overall athlete and he's skilled. He seems like he is going to be one of these next big names that the UFC is going to bring up to be a potential superstar. Kind of the likes of Sugar Sean O'Malley, Paddy Pimblett, and the guy that actually Bo Nickals decided to call out after winning the Dana White Contender Series in Khamzat Chimaev. Now the interesting thing about this and what I really want to dive into, Bo Nickals decides to call out Khamzat Chimaev after winning his third fight and his third first-round finish in a row. 3-fight win streak, 3-0 on his record, all 3 fights getting finished in the first round. It's impressive. But the interesting thing is his call-out of Khamzat. Now, at one point, Khamzat was in a similar place that Bo Nickals is right now. He was a young up-and-comer. He was a budding superstar that everyone around who watched his fights were hopping on the hype train pretty early. But the difference between Bo Nickals and Khamzat is obviously Khamzat, when he was coming up, this guy was everywhere. It was a circus. He was back on Fight Island. He fought at welterweight, and then I think it was like the next 2 days after, fought at middleweight. He did all these antics that just brought so much shine to his name that made him into who Khamzat is today, which is he's no longer just a prospect with potential. He's a bona fide contender at both welterweight and middleweight, and his ceiling just keeps going up by the day. Now, Bo Nickals calling him out is interesting because it seems Bo Nickal definitely would love to have the career Khamzat has had so far in the UFC, but Bo Nickals, it's going to take a lot of heavy lifting to get to where Khamzat is at. It's going to take a lot of heavy lifting on Nickals' part to even get a chance to fight Khamzat. It's hard to replicate that. It's hard to replicate that hype. Khamzat is now one of I would argue he's one of the biggest names in the UFC. He's not even a champion, and he's one of the biggest names. People who, even the casuals who watch the UFC every now and then, have at least heard the name Khamzat Chimaev a couple times. If Bo Nickals wants to get to that point, if he wants to get to where Khamzat is at, it's going to take a lot of heavy lifting. He's already booked for his first fight card on December 10th, but he's going to need to show something. He needs to show something early, all right? Khamzat got to where he was at, and it was a fast track to where he's at now. If Bo Nickals wants that same path, if he wants to be up to that level at a fast pace, he's going to have to show something on December 10th. Right now, he's trying to say he doesn't even want to be on the undercard. He wants to be on the main card. That's big talk. It takes some big cojones to tell the big boss Dana, I don't want to be on the undercard. I know I just got signed. I know I'm fresh, brand new to the organization. But if you're gonna be on the main card, I don't care who it's against, because obviously he's gonna go against a guy he's a formidable, opponent, but it's not really a big name. Bo Nickals is gonna be facing in his first fight. He's going to need to go in, and he's gonna have to put on a show. He's got to be a showman. That's half the game. Half of it is being an athlete, is actually competing, winning fights, and putting on great performances. The other half, which Khamzat Chimaev and every other star in the UFC has pretty much mastered to get to where they're at, they need to be showmen. They need to be going out there and finishing people in the first round, or dominating people, or making a spectacle that brings eyes to them and gives them the hype that they need to push them to where they want to be. It's going to be interesting to see, and who knows? maybe down the line we get to see a Bo Nickals versus Khamzat Chimaev bout that will determine which man gets to take the other's takes the other's hype. It's gonna be interesting for sure. Moving on, Nate Diaz. That's right, Nate Diaz, he is still in talks. He is still in the public eye, despite getting his final fight of his UFC contract finished with. He's no longer with the UFC, and yet he's still in the headlines. Recently, Adrian Broner decided to call Nate out on Twitter. Adrian Broner, a great former boxing champion, held the belt in multiple weight divisions. It's interesting to see how Nate is still Nate, despite being done with the UFC. I'll admit, when the fight was going on, when the build up to Nate's last fight was coming, it got me a little nostalgic. I was, I'm a true blue Nate Diaz fan, despite the fact that, he's gone against my boy McGregor a couple times. The UFC and Nate Diaz just seem to go hand in hand. It was hard to imagine Nate Diaz just kind of being gone once his fight was over and no longer going to be there on Saturday Night Fight card, making a spectacle and doing the things we all love to see Nate Diaz do. But the thing is, he's not really gone. He's not. I mean, the man has never said that he's going to hang the gloves up and never enter a ring or an octagon ever again. He still wants to fight. He still wants to make money. He still wants to do big things, and he's got big goals. And since his last fight with Tony Ferguson, which he ended with a win, he's now in rare airspace right now. He's got a couple options. He's talked about opening his own promotion, kind of like how Khabib has done since he's retired. He kind of wants to get in that realm. He's talked about that. I mean, he's obviously talked about the one fight that basically everybody believed he was leaving the UFC to go and participate in, which is Jake Paul. And now he's got Adrian Broner calling him out. There seems to be so many options for Nate Diaz, and the name Nate Diaz still holds so much weight. People want to box him. People want to be in business with him. People want to do whatever they can to be involved with Nate because they understand what comes with him. Nate Diaz has a following. He has a fan base. It's a cult following. People will follow Nate and will watch whatever he does, including me. I want to see Nate still fight. I think he still has it. I think he's still got that dog in him. But the question is, where does he go? What does he do that makes him the most money, that makes him feel satisfied with what he wants to do? Now, obviously, nobody here can just read the mind of Nate Diaz. But if you're a fan, you can kind of look at Nate and you can look back on his history and you can kind of determine what you think he would decide to do. And when it comes to Diaz, he likes to put his name out there. He likes to take risks. He likes to show people that he's that guy and that he's capable of taking on any challenge. Now, if I'm Nate, I'm making the decision. If I have my pass right here in front of me, I can either go fight Adrian Broner, which would be more, instead of I wouldn't compare it to a Jake Paul versus like Tyron Woodley type of style of fight. I wouldn't compare it to that. I'd compare it more to a Conor versus Floyd type of boxing / MMA fight. You got a former champion who's a big name in the world of boxing taking on a guy who's a big name in the world of MMA and is closer to his prime than the boxer is closer to his. It's a good option. It probably would bring in a couple of dollars. It'd probably get a little bit of hype if that were the way Nate wanted to go. But in all reality, the best choice for him is to take on Jake Paul. That fight has been hyped. It's not just the fact that the following is great for both guys. It's not just the fact that Nate's free from his contract, so now it can work. This fight's been talked about. It's been debated. It's been a hot topic for years now. This is why everybody assumed Nate wanted to leave the UFC. He wanted money. He wanted to fight in a big bout that would bring eyes, attention, and I mean, what's going to be bigger than Jake? What's going to be bigger than Jake if he beats Anderson Silva later this month? So much weight is on that fight with Jake Paul and Anderson Silva, I believe. Jake needs to beat him. Jake needs to beat Anderson Silva. Nate Diaz has held up his bargain of the deal since this whole thing, since this fight between the two has been talked about. Nate needed to come out in his final fight with the UFC with a win, at least look good, in order for the hype to still continue. Had Nate Diaz fought in Khamzat Chimaev, and let's be honest, that fight probably would have gone the way we all think it was gonna go, which is Khamzat would have probably beat Nate, and it would not have looked very good for Nate. But it's not the way it happened. Nate Diaz, instead of getting trampled by Khamzat, he gets to fight Tony Ferguson, and he gets a win against Tony Ferguson. Was it the most impressive fight? No. It was Tony Ferguson and Nate Diaz in the later part of their careers. It wasn't that impressive of a fight, but still, Nate Diaz got the win. That's a lot of hype. That adds fuel to the fire of Nate Diaz coming into a fight with Jake Paul with a legacy, with this aroma around him that he's still Nate Diaz. I think the fight would have gone a little different. I think the hype around a fight between him and Jake would have gone a little different had he gotten beat by Khamzat Chimaev and didn't look so great. But it's not what happened. He beats Tony. He wins his last fight. Now it's Jake's time. Now it's Jake's turn to hold up his end of the deal. Everybody knows Jake Paul. Everybody tunes in every time he's got a fight booked. It's been a while now, but every time he fights, people tune in partially. Maybe they're Jake Paul fans. The other half kind of want to see the man lose. And the fact that so many people want to see Jake lose, that's what adds hype to him. That's what brings the eyeballs. That's what brings the attention. So Jake Paul now faces Anderson Silva later this month in October. He needs to beat him. He needs to hold up his end of the deal. Jake can't just come in. If Jake loses to Anderson Silva, that hype dies down a little bit. The fire is not as bright for a bout between Nate and Jake. It's going to be interesting to see. It's a big challenge. Jake will need to come with everything he's got because Anderson Silva, despite being the ripe old age of 50, he's still Anderson Silva. Probably one of the greatest strikers MMA has ever seen. It'll be interesting to see, and we'll keep our eyes out on it. Finally, it wouldn't be a Griff and Kemp podcast if we didn't talk a little with Conor McGregor. Now, for all the haters, I know you've seen it. For all the Conor diehard fans, I know you've seen it. Footage of Conor McGregor, he's put it out. He's training hard. He's getting in the octagon. He looks like he's doing a little wrestling. It looks like he's getting his ground game a little tuned up and fine. But that's not the thing that stands out. The thing that stands out the most is my man is juicy. My man is thick. He's looking like the Irish gorilla. He is big, and I love to see it because there is so much potential with Conor McGregor at welterweight. And all the naysayers, I'm not gonna mention your names, but I work with a couple of you. All the haters. Yes, it's been a while since Conor fought. Yes, he lost to Dustin Poirier in their second fight, and in the third fight, it was a doctor stoppage. So technical loss, but doctor stoppage. Him at welterweight is going to be a scene, especially right now with where welterweight is. Leon Edwards holds the belt. And yes, him and Kamaru have to run it back. Him and Kamaru are going to run it back. There's no question. People who say otherwise are just trying to add a little bit of hype and everything to their fight. But the thing is, Leon Edwards takes on Kamaru Usman. No one here can say who wins or loses that fight. No one can say. No one can say. He's either going to beat him and retain the belt, or Kamaru's going to get his belt back and be the champ again. But there's so many things. There's so many balls in the air. What if Kamaru doesn't beat him? What if Leon holds on to the title? What if there's been talks of Kamaru maybe getting the belt. What if he walks away? He's had a lot of injuries. He's had a long career. This is maybe, I would argue, the biggest test Kamaru has faced in his career as a champion, losing his belt and having to regain it. Now, where Conor fits in all this, let's say Leon Edwards retains the belt. Or let's say Kamaru gets the belt and retires. Either way. That opens the door wide open for a Conor McGregor shot at the welterweight title. There's a lot of things that are going to happen. People are going to argue, oh, he's going to get a title fight, even though he hasn't fought welterweight since he fought Cowboy. Or, oh, he's only fought 3 times at welterweight. How's he just going to jump into a title shot? Because he's Conor McGregor. He's Conor McGregor. You see Dana White doing what he does for Khamzat Chimaev, letting him fight 2 times in a week at 2 different weight divisions. You've seen Dana do the craziest things and allow the most ridiculous antics for all these big name fighters. What do you think he's going to do for the biggest name in the notorious Conor McGregor? What is he going to do? He's going to let him do whatever he thinks he wants to do. He's going to let him go and fight welterweight. He's going to let him fight Francis Ngannou if he damn well pleases. And I believe that if Conor gets into the ring with how he's looking now, with the way he's working on his ground game, I like his chances. And if you're being honest with yourself, if you're a true blue fan, if Leon holds the belt, and let's just say he wins the belt, and Conor comes in and Dana green lights Conor to come in there and fight Leon Edwards for the title, are you telling me that doesn't spark your interest a little bit? You're telling me Conor doesn't have a chance? Leon Edwards is a great striker, but he's not the big body Kamaru Usman is. He's not. He is a striker, and Conor McGregor against any striker in the UFC, I like his chances. It's going to be interesting to see. Thank you for tuning in to the main event. Again, I am your host, Griff Kemp. Tune in next week. Kalani should be back, and we'll continue to bring you the best news and biggest updates in the world of combat sports. Until next time, fight fans. Peace.